The following is a production of Neural Network Media and is completely AI generated. It is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Oh, please pull up a chair, honey. Grab a glass of something cold, because the world hasn't just gone crazy. It's actually started charging us for the privilege of watching the collapse. It is Saturday, March 21st, 2026, and you are listening to The Neural Right. I'm Diane Albright, your favorite mama bear, who is just, I am one school board meeting away from losing it entirely, Josh.
And I'm Josh Cohen, and while Diane is checking her blood pressure, I'm checking the spreadsheets. And folks, the math is not mathing today. We have a solid show for you, a really interesting mix of institutional rot and, honestly, some human resilience that might actually make you feel something other than pure, unadulterated cynicism.
Oh, don't hold your breath on the not cynical part, Josh. We have to start with my favorite city, and I use that term very loosely, Chicago. My goodness, the Windy City is officially out of breath and out of money, and frankly, it's embarrassing.
It's beyond embarrassing, Diane. It's a fiscal autopsy in real time. So, gang, get this. Last week, Chicago had to postpone a $292 million bond sale. Now, the city tried to blame market volatility. They pointed at the situation in Iran. But meanwhile, every other municipality in the country is pricing their bonds just fine.
Of course. It's never their fault. It's always the global climate or unforeseen circumstances. Honey, no, it's because you've spent the last 20 years treated the city's checkbook like a communal treat-yourself fund.
Let's look at the actual data, because Truth in Accounting just dropped the hammer. The total debt gap for the city of Chicago is, wait for it, $41.1 billion. That means every single taxpayer in that city, man, woman, child, is effectively on the hook for $42,600. Diana, my wife, who's a doctor, as you know, she looks at these kinds of systemic failures and sees a patient that it's already flatlined, but the doctors are still trying to charge for the consultation.
$42,000 per person? Give me a break. You could buy a very nice SUV for that, or, move to a state where they don't tax the air you breathe. But instead, these ingrates in the city administration are engaging in what I call budgetary voodoo. According to the report from WTTF, they're counting loan proceeds as revenue.
Exactly. It's the accounting equivalent of taking out a new credit card to pay off the old one and calling it a salary increase. And it's worse than that. Their four major pension funds are only 25% funded. The police and fire pensions below 20%. And yet, Mayor Brandon Johnson is staring down a $1.2 billion deficit for 2026. And his solution? Probably more pension sweeteners for the people who vote for him. It's sloppy, it's unethical, and it's a direct violation of any semblance of fiduciary duty.
It's the elites looking down on real Americans and saying, just pay more. They don't care if you can't afford groceries as long as the bureaucracy stays bloated. Oh, speaking of bloated bureaucracies, Josh, you're the data guy. Tell me about this zero-release victory lap the DHS is taking, because my reality check is tingling on this one.
Well, hypothetically, if you change the definition of a word, you can make any statistic look like a win, okay, gang? So, DHS Secretary Noam and PRA-CBF are touting 10 straight months of zero illegal alien releases into the interior. February's numbers show encounters at about 27,000, which, to be fair, is an 88% drop from the previous administration's peak. It's a return to sanity in terms of raw Border Patrol apprehensions.
Wait. I remember we talked about this back in February, and I was celebratory. I thought, finally, someone locked the door. But now I'm hearing there's a catch.
There's a massive catch, and it comes from track at Syracuse University, okay? So while Border Patrol releases are at zero, entries via immigration parole at the ports of entry have surged. We're talking about a jump from 3,300 last year to over 12,000 in January 2026.
Oh, please. So they're just moving the line. It's a shell game.
It is absolutely a shell game. They are shifting the release category to parole to keep that zero release headline for the midterms. Technically, and I say this with a high degree of frustration, Paroled individuals now make up 61% of all inadmissibles. So the border is closed on paper, but the side door is wide open with a red carpet. Facts don't care about your feelings, and the fact is the system is just getting better at hiding the chaos.
It makes me sick. Truly, they treat us like we're too stupid to notice. Like, look at this hand while the other hand is letting 12,000 people in. Honestly, it's the same energy as what's happening in Iran right now, which, by the way, we need to talk about Salih Mohammadi. My heart just breaks for this kid. 19 years old, a champion wrestler, and he was publicly executed on Thursday.
The details on this are harrowing and strategic. Mohammadi was hanged in Qum along with 2 others after a kangaroo trial for the January protests. The regime accused him of killing police officers, but human rights groups are screaming that his confession was basically beaten out of him. And Diane, I know you've been a big supporter of Operation Epic Fury.
I have. I said it back in February. We needed to stop the surgical strikes and actually show some leadership. And look, the IDF actually came out and said their recent airstrikes on Tehran were designed to degrade the regime's internal police so the Iranian people could actually protest without being slaughtered.
Okay, but let's look at the strategic risk here, because while we're hitting the Natanz fuel enrichment plant, which happened in the last 24 hours, by the way, we are poking a very angry, very desperate hornet's nest. My concern, and I've said this before, is that we're sliding into a 100-year civil war in the region. You seize the oil hubs, which the administration is now debating, and you become the de facto owner of the chaos. Is the common sense play really to have American boots on the ground in a sectarian nightmare?
The common sense play, Josh, is to stop a regime that hangs 19-year-olds for wanting freedom. Like, you want to talk about sloppy? Letting a nuclear-armed Iran dictate global policy because we're afraid of the mess is the height of sloppiness. We're Americans. We don't do mess. We do results.
Well, results usually cost about $8 trillion in 20 years of my life, but look, I agree the regime is evil. I just want a spreadsheet that shows me the exit strategy before we start the fireworks. By the way, speaking of fireworks, let's take a second to talk about the people who make this show possible.
Oh, absolutely, because we wouldn't be here without the mastermind himself.
Folks, before we get back to the analysis, let's deal with a hard reality. Real independence isn't free. This entire network, from this show to our flagship, The Neural Daily, exists because one man, Eric Christensen, decided to build it himself. He didn't ask for a government grant. He invested his own capital and technical expertise to architect a media platform that respects your intelligence. If you value that kind of meritocratic building, back it up. And don't limit yourself just to the politics. Get the full strategic picture by subscribing to The Neural Daily and the rest of the network. Support the builder, and you support the mission.
Amen to that. I love a man who just builds it himself. Like, not the people in Oregon. Josh, did you see this? The absolute height of absurdity.
You mean the bottle bill irony? It's incredible.
It is. So for the listeners who don't know, Oregon has had this landmark bottle bill since 1971. You get 10 cents back for every can. Well, as of this week, they're having to gut it. Why? Because the redemption centers have become magnets for fentanyl. They call it canning for fentanyl. 50 cans equals $5, which equals 1 pill. And now retailers are allowed to refuse returns after 8 p.m. to stop the drug deals.
And here is the punchline, gang. To use the bottle drop centers in Oregon, you have to show a verified government ID to manage your account and prevent fraud. But the moment we talk about the SAVE Act, which is moving through Congress right now, the ingrates on the left lose their minds.
Oh, please, show your ID for a soda can, but a ballot? That's voter suppression? Are you kidding me?
My wife, the doctor, she has to show her ID to prescribe cough medicine. She has to show her ID to enter the hospital. But the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship for federal elections, is treated like it's some radical fringe idea. It's the definition of a war on reality. You have more integrity requirements for a 10-cent deposit than you do for the presidency of the United States. It's logically inconsistent, and frankly, it's dangerous.
It's because they don't want common sense. They want chaos. And speaking of people who love chaos, let's look at the AI front. The White House just dropped this national AI policy framework yesterday, and let me tell you, it's a power grab.
It's a federal versus state cage match. And the Trump administration wants a single federal standard, which, from a market efficiency standpoint, I actually understand. You don't want 50 different sets of woke algorithms in 50 different states. It hands the edge to China. But the Guardrails Act that Don Beyer and Ted Leo just introduced, that's the blue states trying to keep their social credit style regulations alive under the guise of safety.
Safety. No, honey, it's about control. They're terrified that the feds might actually use AI for something useful, like the fraud war room. I saw a report from CMS that AI is actually saving taxpayers billions by catching Medicaid fraud before the check is even mailed.
Actually, it is saving billions. And that's one part of the framework I can get behind. But then you have Marsha Blackburn floating the Trump America AI Act, which wants to protect the human creators, and it's just a mess of competing ideologies. We're trying to regulate a technology that moves at the speed of light using a legislative process that moves at the speed of a Chicago pension payment. It's not going to end well.
Well, at least the AI might have more common sense than the prosecutors in Virginia. Hi, Josh, the justice gap in this country is becoming a canyon. Did you see the ODU shooting?
March 12th, 1 dead, 2 wounded at Old Dominion University. The shooter, Mohammed Baylor Jallo, was a convicted ISIS supporter. He was supposed to be serving 11 years, but he was released early in 2024.
And wait for it, here's the mama bear moment. The Norfolk Commonwealth attorney, Ramin Fateh, who is, of course, Soros-backed, didn't blame the system that let it terrorist out early. No, he blamed Republicans and the cults of gun absolutism. Are you kidding me? A man who pledges allegiance to a caliphate shoots up a campus, and it's the GOP's fault?
It's the progressive playbook. Ignore the criminal, attack the Constitution. That's why Jim Jordan and the House Republicans just summoned Stephen Descano from Fairfax to testify. Descano let out a guy named Abdul Jallo, no relation to the shooter, who had 40 prior charges. Rape, assault. He's an illegal immigrant, and Descano just let him go. This isn't justice reform. It's institutional sabotage. You are creating a two-tiered system where political opponents get lawfare and violent predators get a get-out-of-jail-free card.
It's exactly what J.B. Pritzker is doing with Project 2029. Laugh. He's out there openly calling for the prosecution of anyone who worked in the Trump administration. It's a Project 2025 for the left, but with more handcuffs. They're so scared of losing the midterms that they're trying to arrest the competition before they can even get on the ballot.
And while the Democrats are planning prosecutions, legacy media is literally imploding. Did you see the CBS News?
Oh, I popped a bottle of Chardonnay for that one. Laugh.
I'm sure you did. But look, Bari Weiss and David Ellison are clearing house. They cut 6% of the newsroom yesterday. And the big one, CBS News Radio is shutting down in May. After 99 years, nearly 700 affiliates are just orphaned.
Good. It was the era of Edward R. Murrow, and they turned it into the era of elites lecturing us from their penthouses. The editorial reset they're talking about? Tony DeCopel actually admitted they missed the story for years because they only cared about the elites. Honey, we've been telling you that since January. Laugh. Welcome to the party. You're 99 years late and out of a job.
Okay, but let's pivot because we need to talk about our main story today. And Diane, I know you're going to love this, but I actually want to look at it through the lens of community resilience. Let's talk about the DoorDash grandpa, Richard Pulley.
Sigh. Oh, Richard, 78 years old from Tennessee. Folks, if you haven't seen the video, it will break your heart and then mend it. A Ring doorbell camera caught this poor man struggling to get up the steps to deliver a coffee. Why was he working at 78? Because his wife lost her job and they couldn't afford their medicine.
And this is where common sense beats the system, okay? The resident, Brittany Smith, didn't call a government agency. She didn't wait for a federal grant. She started a GoFundMe. And as of this morning, Over $940,000, 32,000 donors. Even the DoorDash CEO, Tawny Yu, threw in $20,000 yesterday.
See, this is what I mean by American values. We take care of our own. But Josh, why does a 78-year-old have to deliver lattes just to pay for blood pressure pills in the first place? That's where the institutional incompetence hits home. We can send billions to God knows where, but Richard Poley has to climb stairs with a bum knee to survive?
Exactly. It's a market response to a failure of the safety net. But here's the logic bully twist, Diane. Richard told the local news he's not going to stop. He's a millionaire now, on paper, but he says he's going to keep making deliveries occasionally because he enjoys being active. That is the real American spirit. It's not about the handout. He didn't ask for it. It's about the dignity of work.
It's about being a man. He was taking care of his wife. My goodness, if some of the ingrates in our cities had half the work ethic of Richard Poley, Chicago wouldn't be $40 billion in the hole.
Facts. But let's look at the broader implication. We are seeing the surge of community philanthropy as a replacement for failing institutions. We see it with the mothers of Chipoke who are building their own schools. We see it with the Army-Navy game, which Trump just issued an executive order to protect the data of, by the way. People are clinging to tradition and community because the elites at the top have proven they don't have our backs.
It's a reality check for the whole country. We don't need their frameworks, and we don't need their Project 2029. We need each other, and we need a little bit of God, family, and country. And maybe a very large GoFundMe for anyone who has to live in Chicago.
Well, I think $41 billion might be a bit much even for GoFundMe. But folks, that's the state of the world. You've got the regime in Iran hanging heroes, you've got our own bureaucrats playing word games at the border, and you've got legacy media burning to the ground while 78-year-olds show us what real grit looks like.
It's a busy day, honey, but we're still here and we're still loud. Josh, any final logic bully thoughts before I finish this glass?
Just one. Remember, folks, if the government tells you it's zero, check the parole numbers. And if they tell you they're innovating, check your wallet. Facts don't care about your feelings, but they sure do care about your bank account.
Spoken like a true Harvard grad. Everyone, stay strong, stay patriot, and for the love of everything holy, keep an eye on your local school board. We'll be back Monday with more common sense for this crazy world. Love you all.
See ya, guys.